It was just a regular day in the 242 gallon, the home to Ace, the female American toad, the star of this channel. But by the end of this night, something so dramatic was going to happen, it was going to change the landscape of this very ecosystem forever. Ace has enjoyed life over the last 5 years as the dominant animal in any ecosystem she's lived in, but the problem is, she hasn't lived in an ecosystem where she's been challenged. What's going to happen when old rivals meet for the first time in 5 years? That's right, whenever Ace meets Wellsboro inside the 242 gallon. It almost appears as if Ace has seen a ghost from her past, and Wellsboro this time, unlike 5 years ago, is not fazed or amused by anything or any tactics that Ace tries to employ. With Wellsboro unceremoniously brushing past the homeowner of this ecosystem, it reminded me of a distant relative coming over for the holidays and raiding your refrigerator and your kitchen pantry to find what amazing amenities you have. One can only wonder what is going to take place now that Wellsboro is beginning to make himself at home inside the 242 gallon. Creek sedge, New York fern, and various other plants and materials were used to create this ecosystem, and one can only wonder if these are things that Wellsboro hasn't seen in 5 years since he was last out in the wild. It makes you wonder what's going through this little toad's head whenever he's hopping around inside this enclosure. Wellsboro began to scope out the entirety of this ecosystem by going side to side, meticulously exploring through every feature that this enclosure had to offer. He was staking out for where he thought best to set up shop, to hide, and to take refuge from the dry sun overhead. For the first time ever, Ace appeared to be dazed and confused. She was still trying to figure out what just happened inside this enclosure. This new intruder just seemingly walked right past her and invaded her home, and even though she might remember him from 5 years ago, she was still unsure about him. And the arms race was going to continue, this time with 2 American toads that were evenly matched in size. One being Ace having strength versus Wellsboro, who owns the speed category. It was magnificent to see how Wellsboro could navigate so well through this enclosure. I truly underestimated his speed and his light-footed nature. It was unbelievable to see a male American toad of his size navigate so gracefully through this enclosure with all of the wood, branches, water features, and everything else. He made it look so effortless, and it was unbelievable to watch this great, large, and old American toad hop around almost as if he would back in the wild. Wellsboro appeared to begin taking in all of the sights and sounds of the enclosure, trying to make sense of what just happened, being placed inside this ecosystem without having any practice, any preparation, or any knowledge that this even existed. One thing was for sure, when these 2 juggernauts were at their most active during nightfall, we were going to find out how this dynamic duo was going to interact, especially whenever the hierarchy to become the dominant animal was at play for both of them. It became very apparent that Wellsboro was starting to watch Ace. He was stalking her from behind. Just about every opportunity he could get, he would try to get behind her, and I wasn't sure exactly why he was doing this. I've never seen a male toad do this to a female toad in a tank before, so I was really curious to see where this was going to lead. Is Wellsboro just going to walk into the 242 gallon and take it over that easy? To be frank, Wellsboro might run around and look like he owns the place, but he has nothing on Ace whenever it comes to feeding time. Ace is still the dominant animal whenever it comes to securing the feeding bowl, And we know with these animals, whoever secures the resources is the one who owns the ecosystem. The one who's at the top of the hierarchy is the one who eats the most and has the most energy. And that is Ace. And it still remains Ace. Ace does not have the agility, speed, or nimbleness of Wellsboro, but she does possess one of the most important skills to master in an ecosystem: the ability to control the resources. Ace takes over, and she makes sure that she gets her fair share to eat, and she controls the water bowl. These are some of the most important things to do if you're going to live in an ecosystem where there's competition. And Ace, over the 5 years that she's been around, has always been up to the challenge. So this wasn't going to be something that she wasn't used to. Ace was getting ready to prepare for the new challenge of defending her new home, this ecosystem from Wellsboro. Ace still held on to the old mentality of 5 years ago. She was going to control the resources and beat Wellsboro into submission. She was going to take all of the food and make sure she got her fair share of water. But that's not all that Wellsboro was after, and he was going to step on her, literally and hypothetically, to do whatever it takes to get the resources and to get what he was after. Ace was soon to learn this wasn't 5 years ago. She's not a juvenile toad anymore. There are real things going to happen inside this ecosystem that have never taken place before with any of the American toads that I've ever kept. One thing that I forgot to mention, as Wellsboro took his first adventure through the woods, it was an unseasonably warm night. I made sure that the enclosure and the room itself was warmer than it seasonably was. Not only did that trigger a response in the American toads, but it also triggered a response from my male eastern gray tree frog, Esperanza. Let the games begin. Can you find where Wellsboro is calling from? Let us know in the comments below if you actually found him while he was calling from this shot. Ace never had to contend with a breeding season because she was a juvenile when I first got her. This was the very first time she's ever heard a chorus of American toads, and she's seen a charged up male American toad who began to take an interest in her. Even though she looks disinterested, Wellsboro kept coming towards her and actually vocalizing, releasing his mating call along with his vocal sac, trying to interest Ace to turn around and allow him to mate with her. Wellsboro wasn't going to give up, even though Ace wasn't interested in him or his mating call. Wellsboro was going to continue to try to encourage her through the night.
Is this a problem?
Despite all of the attempts to ignore him, Wellsboro made sure to grab a hold of Ace, and he began trying to amplex her and encourage her by grabbing her and twisting her, moving her towards the water. Could this be the beginning of a new chapter in their rivalry? What makes it even more interesting is that through ultrasounds, we discovered that Ace is carrying eggs. Could Ace become a mother after all these years and Wellsboro become a father? This is truly some of the most exciting and unbelievable events to unfold inside the 242 gallon. The discovery of Ace carrying eggs and seeing these two Amplex truly reminds me of the slogan of this show, something you've never seen before. And guys, that's exactly what this looks like to me. We're going to have to continue monitoring both of them to see what comes of this. Make sure you stay tuned and watch what happens in the next Through the Woods episode. This is The Woods Uncut. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow so you can see what happens to Ace, Wellsboro, and the ecosystem all together. I can't wait to take you through the woods again. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.
Keep reaching.